Tim Berquist. I'm a Registered Consulting Arborist and a board-certified Master Arborist. And I have over 28 years of experience in the field of arboriculture. And I'm here to talk to you today about the Shoreland Protection Act. The Shoreland Protection Act began in 1991 as the Comprehensive Shoreland Protection Act and was put into place to help protect our water supplies and watershed in the New Hampshire state. So the Shoreland Protection Act protects the 250 feet shore adjacent to any water body, major lake, big lake, large lake, rivers, or shoreline throughout the state. And it is broken up into several areas, the buffer areas. There's two major buffer areas. One's called the natural woodland buffer, and that's from the shoreline to the 150-foot setback. And then within that is the waterfront buffer, which is set from the shoreline to 50-foot inland. Each have different standards as to what the Shoreline Protection Act is put in place to control. The purpose of the woodland buffer is to protect the water from erosion, turbidity, siltation, anything flowing into the water from upland within that 150-foot areas. So there are many limitations that are put into what's allowed to be done with that woodland area, including construction and the amount of trees that are left in those areas. The buffer is required to have 25% covered by woodland, natural woodland. Included in this is protection against nutrients and chemical pollution, anything related to septic or sewage, and also preserve the natural environment for wildlife, fish, and people. The waterfront buffer is the most highly restricted portion of the buffer. It was put into place with the discretions allowed to the homeowner to allow for viewscape, to allow for access, for safety purposes, to be able to use the water, but there are many prohibitions and limitations that are included in this area. This is not allowed within 25 feet of the shoreline and can extend all the way up to the 250-foot setback, depending on whether there's water supply there or not. So the tree management is oftentimes the biggest question that is asked from me. It's how many trees am I allowed in the buffer? The way the buffer is broken up is broken up into segments. It begins at the northerly or easterly portion of the property and extends in 25-foot segments along the shoreline. So each segment measures out to 25 foot wide by 50 foot from the shoreline inland. In these areas, you have to maintain a certain number of points. For most areas, it's 25 points. These vegetation points include trees, shrubs, saplings of 1 inch or greater, and any ground cover, but do not include mowed lawns. And they are measured by the diameter of the tree, either at 4.5 feet, which would be at breast height, or if you're measuring for a nursery, it'd be caliper measured at the standard nursery height. Vegetation shall not be removed from any of the segments that don't reach that minimum point level. But there are certain exceptions to that. If the tree is dead, diseased, or dangerous, then it can be removed even if the points fall below that point. But you should always check with the licensed or certified arborist to make sure that the tree isn't that kind of a risk before removing it. Normal tree pruning is allowed under the Shoreland Protection Act. You can reduce the extent, you can do thinning, you can raise for views, but none of this is allowed if it's going to endanger the health of the tree. Planting is encouraged by the Shoreland Protection Act as long as they are non-invasive, and they can often aid in future trimming or removal projects. This is an excellent way of preparing for future losses in your trees and allowing for removal of undesirable trees. There were many limitations put into place through the Shoreland Protection Act, all to preserve our watershed and water supply. These limitations do come with a cost, but they help keep our land beautiful and our water beautiful. Thank you for attending, and please feel free to contact me with any questions. Thanks.